Thank you, everyone. I think we've got 20 people so far, which is really good. We've got a few more people coming in as well, I think, but hopefully they'll be joined very shortly. So thanks again for joining us on our webinar. We've been doing this for the last 3 years now, Andrew, I think, altogether. We started during COVID.
Yeah, January, wasn't it? So yeah, 3 years.
Really, really popular, very popular. So we start off just trying to give people a bit of a few hints and tips and a free advice. So very pleased that we've actually picked up a few customers. We're helping people out. We're giving lots of free advice to people all the time, whether you're thinking of moving, have moved, thinking of moving next year, 24, 25, 26. Happy to talk to anybody and everybody, whether it's to rent or to buy. We both cover different areas, myself and Andrew, which we'll go through in a moment. So again, just a reminder, we are recording. So if you don't want your face on there, please go incognito if you like, and please mute unless there's any questions you've got. We're going to try and keep it towards the end if we can. So we're going to just briefly run through a bit about myself. We'll do a couple of news updates as well, then pass across to Andrew, who's going to also give you some more different news updates as well. So we cover slightly different areas, like I say. But I'm very pleased with the amount of people we've got today. We've got people from all over the world. We do many South Africans, as people know. We've got people from France, Belgium, Hong Kong, Pakistan, America, UK as well. It's a really good selection from everybody. So fingers crossed everybody gets something out of today. And then towards the end, we're really looking forward to getting Shani. I've been trying to speak to Shani for the last year or so. Finally, she's agreed to come on board, which is great. Immigration advice, brilliant, independent, and has moved over from another country already. So there's actual experience of what to do. So yeah, I'm just going to go through a little bit more about myself now. Okay, so that was taken a few years ago, obviously, during lockdown, when I was a little bit slimmer. So this is just a quick resume of me. Essentially, I started in the property business in 1986, a long time ago, getting on for 38, 39 years now. I was an estate agent for 21 years, so buying and selling houses up to director level. And to 2007, I jumped onto the relocation side. So I went from buying, selling houses to the relocation side, to letting. So since then, I've been helping everybody find a home to rent when they're coming from another country with a new job, generally speaking, or sometimes paying up front if they haven't got the new job. So for the last 17 years, all of the people I deal with are coming from another country. I rarely deal with English people. Sometimes British people, British citizens come from another country. That's fine. I've been a tenant on and off myself since 2011. So I got experience as a tenant, what a tenant wants to hear. I've been a landlord since 1999, so nearly 25 years, over 25 years now. So I know what a landlord wants to hear. I've also run a lettings and property management department for a couple of years. So I've got experience of everything. So when people ask me something about property, I can say, look, I've managed relationships throughout all those different transactions. So I know what a landlord wants to hear, what you say to an estate agent, what you don't say to an estate agent, or when to say it. It's very, very different. Anybody that's coming on these webinars normally has been trying to find a home themselves from abroad. That's why we try to specialize. We actually try and find you the home using our contacts, our knowledge, before you get here, which can save you an awful lot of money on Airbnb costs, hotel costs, etc. The next slide, please. So this is a bit harder to talk about because this is reviews about me. As I get them, but it's hard to try and talk about yourself like this. This is a couple of months ago now, or a few months ago now. So we're up to, I think, 87 reviews as of today. I'm pleased to say every one is still a 5-star, which is nice. So hopefully they remain that way. But by all means, please, if you want to check me out on the Google reviews and check us all out, obviously, that's the best thing because it's the best way to show what I've done. Somebody the other day asked me, do I have a flyer? I don't have a flyer because I try to tell people what we do. We are here to save you time, hopefully save you money, certainly save you stress as well, because we're acting for you. Now, not many people do what we do. It's quite a niche market, but it's what we've been doing for many, many years. So it's natural to us. We know when you apply for an estate agent, they're swamped with property requests from tenants, swamped. They're sometimes 20, 30, 50. Andrew will tell even more horror stories up north where there's even more people applying. And you have to put an application in and without telling what you do, Andrew, before even getting a viewing, sometimes Andrew has it even tougher than we do in the south. So we cover generally London and the south of England. Andrew covers the north, which he'll go on to shortly. But yeah, by all means, please look at the reviews. Now, the next slide you're going to see is from a lady called Reva. She runs a fantastic Instagram page called The Daily Reeve, The Daily Reeve, REEV. Please check it out. She does some great hints and tips. I moved her, so the first ever webinar we did 3 years ago, her husband's colleague, so Reva's husband's colleague, asked if we can help them. I said, yeah, absolutely fine, no problem. She also said, could you help my colleague Chad as well? We're both lawyers in London. Yeah, one wants to live in South London, wants to live in Milton Keynes. Great, fantastic. Chad was the lawyer. Reva is his wife. And in a roundabout way, I met her nearly 3 years ago. And then Andrew virtually bumped into her a year or so ago, and we've sort of reenacted again. So it's been quite a nice story that the way we work together, and she runs a great YouTube, Instagram channel. So the next slide you're going to see is Reva. So again, a bit cringing for me to listen to, talking about myself, but have a listen anyway. We got any sound?
Saturday.
Sorry, just having a little trouble with the sound of the video. Otherwise, we'll be sharing the presentation afterwards so people can see the recording if we do not come right.
Yeah. And that's hard for me to watch it through again as well.
You're still not able to hear the sound?
No, nothing.
No.
Okay. Sorry, guys.
No problem.
Technical difficulties. We'll just go on to the next slide for now, and we'll send the presentation to everyone so that they can watch the video afterwards.
Thanks, Anshki, and thanks, Mark. I mean, it was always a great insight from Mark, and yeah, thank you for everyone for joining the webinar. I think the whole purpose for us is we only see one element of the move. So the idea kind of came about 3 years ago for trying to involve people involved in all different areas of relocating to the UK, because there's so many moving parts. It's a life-changing decision. It's an emotional roller coaster, and we will help, yes, with the property find and all the support that comes at the back end. But there is so many different areas, such as immigration, visas, shipping, household goods, family kind of things to talk about, pets. So the idea of the webinar was to involve everyone and have guest speakers and record it, so then people have access to all that information for free. We can only advise what we do. We wouldn't want to kind of ensure people are coming. We need to make sure people are coming for the right reasons and making sure they're happy and they've thought it through fully before making that commitment. So obviously there's a lot of cost involved for people relocating, with selling houses, finding property over here, all the paperwork and the admin as well. So hopefully the webinars are of use. And we like to think we're an open book. We are, myself and Mark, a small independent relocation agent. So in effect, if I was moving to South Africa or Hong Kong or Australia, I would like to think someone is there, one personable approach, single point of contact, who is in effect your eyes and ears, but also your knowledge in the country you're moving to. So that's kind of, yeah, where we come in, hopefully. As Mark touched on, so Mark's based in Reading and covers the south. I'm based in Manchester, and myself and a couple of small team cover the northwest down to Birmingham. A little bit on me, obviously on the timeline you can see I started investing in property in 2004. So there's been a bit of information out this week which I will share with you, which is quite interesting for rentals. I then started working for a bigger relocation company in 2008 before splitting off on my own, thinking people shouldn't be a number. It's a whole life move. So we kind of trimmed down, and it's just myself working with one other person to kind of help people in their whole relocation, rather than moving hundreds of people with the larger relocation agents. I'm personally a landlord. I've also rented over the years, and also invest. So we like to see all points, so we can advise basically the clients moving the best way to approach getting a property. I know Mark touched on how difficult the rental market is. I think that's across the UK, particularly in the north. I think there's over 60 people applying for every one property. So I get a lot of calls and a lot of WhatsApps from people despondent saying, why are they not responding? Or why are letting agents not responding? It's normally because they will filter through and kind of pick maybe the 10, 15 best people to go back to. But that is all changing thanks to the Renters Reform Bill. So I will pass back to Mark to touch on a few stats, and then I'll go into a few important dates for your diary, particularly for schools, for those families moving, and also some key points for this Renters Reform Bill, which is still going through legislation, but it only came out the first draft last week. So, but it's some quite interesting points for people considering moving to the UK.
Andrew, do you want to just carry on with that now, and then I've got my points here, but whilst you're on a roll.
Can do, yeah. I suppose the key dates I was going to touch on is, for anyone planning to move, we always advise allow 6 to 8 weeks. So I know people plan way in advance. 6 to 8 weeks is the key kind of window for us. The reason being that most tenants have to give 1 or 2 months notice to vacate the property. So that's our window to start the search. Although we can start before, effectively we try and find that property to align with when you're arriving in the UK. In terms of shipping, I moved a South African family last week. They're 8 to 10 weeks for freight shipping via, well, shipping their household goods. So that's just because that can vary from 6 to 10 weeks. So that's kind of, as of last week, that was the information I got from, they were coming from Johannesburg. And then in particular for families, school dates to be aware of for applications for next year. Secondary school, which is 11 to 16-year-olds, that application closes end of October, and primary school closes mid-January. So just if you are planning schools, which I know a lot of families do, just be aware of them dates, because they, well, in effect, you would need a property to be able to apply for the schools you want in the respective area. So some key dates which I can share, or if people want to send me an email, happy to pop them over as well. Now on to the big news, which maybe not so big in South Africa or wherever you are in the world, but it's the Renters Reform Bill. The main thing is that no more no-fault evictions, which is section 21. So you get a lot of tenants who have moved in and the landlord may decide to sell. If they're in tenancy, then basically you can no longer evict without a very valid reason. There's also a few other key points. So you cannot discriminate against families, against people on benefits, and a few other points as well. There's more regulation for people coming with pets. So the landlord cannot unreasonably refuse if you want to bring a cat or a dog, as well as rent increases only being once per year, and they have to be in line with the market rent. So I've had stories where the rent was maybe 1,200 a month and the landlord's knocked it up to 1,600 a month within 1 year. That's no longer going to be allowed, and it has to be in keeping with the market rent. So there's some key points which will help renters, works a little bit in renters' favour. How it will kind of pull through, it's still going through, so we'll see. How it will affect the rental market, my view is there'll be less rentals to choose from because landlords will choose to sell. But if I had a crystal ball and I could fast forward 1 year, then we'll see. But as a landlord myself, just seeing what's happening, makes a little bit nervous, should we say, because there's a lot of costs involved. Thank you. And Mark, do you want to share on the stats?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. So yeah, I think we think it's going to be coming in around about summer next year. Is that right? That's the talk at the moment, is it?
Yeah.
So we're still okay for another 6-8 months kind of thing, maybe 10 months or something like that. So at the minute, it's not to be too worried about, but hopefully it will help us. But as Andrew says, that if you ask any estate agent, a lot of landlords who tend to be kind of just 1 or 2 properties, and therefore they will all have a mortgage on their property as well. So if the mortgage goes up, their costs go up, as well as having to try and put the rent up. But they can't do it, as Andrew said, extensively. But rents have been going up quite a lot. So I've got a quick stat on that, where actually rental inflation slowed to its lowest in the last 3 years, which seems like a good news story, but it's still 5.4% increase, which is higher than inflation, obviously. So that's the problem where it is, but it's hopefully slowing down. It's still tough. And there's still, as Andrew says, I say Andrew has it tougher up in Manchester and surrounding areas where there's 60, 70 people. Sometimes they are down here as well, but there's at least 20, 30, 50 people. So we have to try and make sure we are your eyes and ears, and making sure, because a lot of properties we get that Andrew hasn't touched on, I didn't either, is before, is that it's not just on Rightmove or Open Rent or Zoopla, is we know a lot of these agents quite well. So we get properties off market. So before they come to the market, or we challenge them to say what's coming on next week, next month, 2 months time, before it hits the market, because they don't always want it to hit Rightmove or Zoopla, because they get swamped with 20, 30, 50 inquiries. So if they can do it by somebody who's been pre-vetted, they know us already, they know us very, very well, the agents, then they can look good, we can do our job, and we try and save you that time. So I'm going to refer to Annette here, where Annette has just asked, do you sit and help and find people after landing UK or before? So we can help with both, Annette, to be fair. The reason we say we try to do it beforehand is because it's super tough, because if you land on the 1st of a month, and you don't have to move in on the 1st of the month, a lot of people think you have to move in on the 1st, you can move in any day apart from the Sunday. But if you arrive on the 1st of the month, you've got to find a property very quickly. If you're in a hotel or an Airbnb, that will cost you thousands, absolutely thousands, if you're in an Airbnb. So we try to at least very, very closely align the dates as much as we can within a week or so. If you choose to want to come here first and do an Airbnb for a couple of weeks, that's fine, your choice, no problem at all. We can still help you, but it just means that you're under that much more pressure, because you're in an Airbnb for a week or two. You're looking for something that's available in the next week or two, so you're lessening your chances. So we're trying to give you the best possible options, but it's your decision. You decide how you want to do it. Most people try to do it beforehand, but you do whatever you're comfortable with. And that's why when we say we need that 6 to 8 week window, I like to just try and speak to people even before 3-6 months, just to get an idea when you're moving, because at least we can keep people on track. And if people are saying, I'm looking at doing it this, looking at doing that, we can either say, look, have you considered this? Because I thought we could live in this area or that area. Why did you think that? Because of this and that, right? And we can suggest, well, you're going into the office maybe 2 or 3 times a week, not 4 or 5 times a week. So you don't need to be right next to the station. You could be a little bit further out, get a bit more value for money. And because we know our clients very well, we probably know more than they know themselves of the type of house they're looking for. If you have your fur babies and pets, this is always another difficult one, obviously. Very tricky, as me and Andrew have when people have dogs and cats. My record, I'm not looking to try and beat this, by the way, was 7 indoor cats, finding a house with 7 indoor cats. That was pretty stressful for everybody. So please don't, I'm not asking to beat that record at all. I just use it that we've had people with multiple dogs, we have people with birds, guinea pigs, any number of different things we've got. So it's very, very different altogether. But I think if we've not got anything else at the minute, Andrew, have you got anything else on this, or are we moving on to hopefully now the main event, Shani?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear from Shani, because visas and immigration is key. The key thing that kicks everything off, I suppose.
Yeah.
Well, no visa, no move, no house.
Yeah.
So I moved over to the UK myself in 2019 with my son. I had to go through the whole visa process with him, which was terribly stressful, because you don't know if the visa is going to be granted. You literally find out when you go and collect the passport from TLS if you've got a positive decision or not. Once having done that, back then you only had a month to move. now you've at least got a window of 3 months to move. So I got his visa on the 30th of May, and we had to be out of the country by the 30th of June. We had to be in the UK. I'd given sort of casual advice on Facebook groups, immigration advice for a couple of years. And then I decided that it was time to actually make a living out of it. So I got registered with the OISC, which is the governing body for immigration advice in the UK. So to give advice in the UK, you actually legally either have to be registered with the OISC or you have to be a qualified solicitor. You cannot just give casual advice to people. You can go to jail. Nobody wants to be going there. So I studied, I qualified last year, and I set up my business. And basically my business model is quite similar to Andrew and Mark. I'm your point of contact. It's personal service. You'll always deal with me. You know, whether there's someone in the background doing the filing is one thing, but you will be speaking to me. You know, whether I'm crazy or not, my clients get my WhatsApp. They can message me when they are having a panic, when they want to know something, because I know what it's like, and I know the anxiety, and I've gone through the process. I've done the whole MN1 thing for my son, and I know the stress and anxiety around it. And sometimes you just need someone to sort of hold your hand through the process. So that's my business model. I will be your point of contact. I will advise you. I will always give you the best option for you and your family, even if I could possibly throw in a couple more steps to make some more money for myself. That's not the way I work. And yeah, so far so good. I'm now working with people like Mark and Andrew. We refer people back and forth. It's quite a good symbiotic relationship. And yeah, does anyone have questions for me? Any questions about relocating and visas and, you know, what your first steps might be?
Shani, I've got one from somebody last week that asked me a question, if you don't mind, if I'm
Sure.
just trying to give you an idea. So I've written it down here, make sure I've got it. What is the criteria for a spousal visa, and does it have to be renewed?
Okay, yeah. So spouse visa applies to the spouse and dependents of a British citizen. That is the definition. You can be an unmarried partner, you can be married, you can be in a same-sex relationship, whatever the case may be. The essential difference between dependence on a spouse visa and ancestry, for example, is a spouse visa has got financial criteria that have to be met. So the British citizen in the equation has to either come over to the UK and work for 6 months in a role that pays £29,000 or more per year, or you have to come across with savings of £88,500. Generally unreachable for those, particularly coming from South Africa with the exchange rate. I mean, that's just a vast amount of money. So most people do come across, you know, the spouse comes over, works. Once they've got their 6 months pay slips, they do their application, and then, you know, spouse and children and whatever come across as well. It is a renewable visa, which is very important. It's not issued for 5 years. It's issued for 2 years and 9 months. And anytime
2 years, 9 months, then you can't, it's not a continuous one.
No.
Okay.
So anytime from 30 months, you can then renew your visa for another 2.5 years, which would then take you to your 5 years for indefinite leave to remain. Obviously, you've got visa costs again at that point. You've got IHS fees again. So for a family where it's, you know, husband, wife, 2 children, that renewal process, it comes to around £10,500. And that's something that people really do need to be aware of, because it's quite a lot of money to suddenly be hit with if you're not expecting it. Children can then, shortly afterwards, crazily enough, apply for their citizenship. but the wife has to continue for her 5 years to get her indefinite leave to remain and then citizenship. You also have to still meet the financial requirements. So if you came over with the savings option, you can then meet the earnings option of £29,000, but there is a financial criteria all the way through to indefinite leave to remain.
That scares the life out of me, what your some of the figures and things. Now, how people, I speak to people, and Andrew does all the time, where people say, I'm going to do the visa myself. And I just say, look, please have a chat with Shani or somebody, just consultation initially, just have a chat, make sure you're on track, or whether you can help to or not. But if you get it wrong, that's really wrong, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, it can cost people a lot of money. It's an unfortunate thing, and a lot of people do try to do it themselves, which is fine. But I have had clients who have come to me who have applied for completely the wrong extension and have lost, £5,000 in the process because that doesn't get refunded. So, sometimes it's better to even just get in touch with someone like me, pay a consult fee, have an hour of my time, and at least know that you're on the right track rather than, sort of winging it and potentially sitting thousands out of pocket. There's a question that's popped up here from Christian.
Yeah.
If I come over on a work visa and my wife also, how long does it take to get a dependent visa after the work visa is approved? A couple of weeks. It's really quick. So it's one of the quickest visas of all. A couple of weeks and your wife's visa would be approved, provided you meet the criteria. So, yeah.
That's nice to hear. Because when I think visas, I just think months. So weeks is
100%.
Yeah, work visas are pretty quick. Ancestry visas are pretty quick.
Yeah.
Spouse visas, unless you've got another £1,000 to throw at it for a quick decision, you're looking at sort of 2 to 3 months for that to come through. Those are the longest. Spouse and dependent. The people that are married to British citizens, theirs take the longest.
Yeah.
And then Barry has posted, adopted by British-born parents and grandparents. What is the understanding as an adult adoptee? In what sense? Can Barry unmute himself?
We can unmute Barry, I think.
Can Barry be unmuted?
Let me just check.
Barry, hello there.
Hi, Barry.
Good evening, everybody. Yeah, I'm unmuted. Yes, I've worked this one out. Yeah, so effectively, I was adopted as a 5-week-old child. And my parents are both English, and their parents are both English. And my wife has a British passport. And if we were to move across the United Kingdom to join our children who are both have English passports, would there be a complication my side, or would I get in via an ancestral route?
You would qualify for an ancestry visa, Barry, or you could come on a spouse visa. Completely up to you. In your situation, an ancestry visa would make more sense because otherwise your wife would need to, well, you would either need to roll in with your £88,500, or your wife would need to come over first, work for 6 months, earn over the threshold, and then you have to jump through various hoops along the way.
Thank you for that. And obviously you don't loan the money, do you? I mean, to us little adoptees.
Sadly, no.
That was a good try there, Barry.
Christian, another question. Can you get a work visa without a job? No. So that's an important question. I get asked this quite regularly. Can I do a work visa for somebody? No, I can't. The process for a work visa is you have to be employed. You have to find a company who is accredited and who will give you a certificate of sponsorship. Now, sponsorship, a lot of people automatically think means that the company is going to pay your visa fees and your IHS fees and all the rest of it. Some do. That's your agreement with the company that's chosen to employ you. Essentially, what sponsorship in this sense means is they provide you with what is called a certificate of sponsorship. which indicates how long your contract with them is, whether, it's 2 years, 5 years. The maximum they can do at a time is 5 years, because that's the maximum work visa length you can get. And that piece of paper, that certificate of sponsorship, then allows you to apply for your skilled work visa. So your steps would be, generally, what I suggest is go onto the gov.uk website, look at the skilled roles that are, the jobs that are classified as skilled. And then also on the same website, you can find a list of accredited employers. You can find a list of jobs that are currently going. I mean, those are just the published jobs on gov.uk. You can also trawl through LinkedIn, that type of thing, and see what you can find that way. But essentially, to answer your question in a nutshell, no, you cannot get a work visa without a job in place. Okay, what is the period that work visas are valid for, and what an estimate of the costs to renew it? So your initial work visa, you have an option of either a visa that takes you up to 3 years or up to 5 years. So your up to 3 years visa is in the region of £700 for the visa. Up to 5 years is about £1,600 for the visa. And then depending on how many years your COS is valid for, you pay IHS fees accordingly. So if you've been granted a 2-year certificate of sponsorship, you'll pay the full £700 for the visa plus 2 years IHS fees, if that makes sense. When it comes to renew it, it's slightly more expensive actually for the visa within the UK, and then the IHS fees again have to be paid. The renewal within the UK for under 3 years is in the region of £860 for your visa. You're welcome to get in touch with me as well, and I can break it down for you in an email. So any advice for applying for jobs whilst outside the UK? Yes, it is difficult. It's been sold as an idea that's quite easy. It's not really easy. Employers here generally want to know that you have the right to work already. And this is where the skills part of it comes in, where, there is that specific list, and those are roles that people are, well, that the government's identified are in a shortage. So my recommendation would be is get hold of someone here who can redo your CV for you. Don't do your CVs on Canva. Don't do them as PDFs. They should be Word documents, because all of these things go through software systems that pick up keywords that they can't pick up in these fancy, pretty CVs. So you're immediately thrown out of the pile. Get your LinkedIn up to date. LinkedIn is huge in the UK. It's not as big necessarily in South Africa. I'm not sure where you happen to be from, but LinkedIn is really big in the UK. And set your status as open to work, link in with recruiters, that type of stuff, link in with people in your industry. Just treat it like Facebook and link up with people and, find out what's going on in their work.
I've had a lot of people headhunted from LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And they may be from Canada or South Africa, and they, have you ever been to Manchester or Liverpool? No. Recruiter found me on LinkedIn. I had the skill set they needed, and now we're here. So, and that happens all the time, believe it or not. So it's that's great advice for LinkedIn, I think.
Yeah. I think LinkedIn was a recruitment setup, wasn't it? I think set up by recruitment, I think.
Yeah, and if you set your status to open to work, not everyone can see it. So you can set it so that only recruiters can see it. So whoever's employing you in South Africa or wherever you are in the world can't necessarily see that you're open to work and looking. But yeah, that's an important tool, because recruiters can see that. If you come on a skilled work visa, can your dependent work in the UK? Yes, they can. And they can work in any job, aside from being a coach or a professional sports person. There is a specific visa for that. So always bear that in mind. People have got into a lot of trouble for that before.
I had a client ask me last week, Shani, I wasn't sure on the answer, but they asked why they're still paying national insurance when they've already paid the IHS surcharge.
Yeah, I've been asked this a few times. I know it does seem like a bit of a kick in the gut when you've paid £1,035 per year of your visa length towards the NHS. But what I say to people is it's almost like you're paying into a system that you've never paid into in your life. So when you get off that plane, if you are hit by, the bus at Heathrow and need to go to hospital and you receive thousands and thousands of pounds of care, it's covered from day one. And if, I really feel it's almost only fair. Other people who are 45 years old have contributed into the system for 25 years to get that care. And I know it's controversial and some people think it's unfair. If you were to immigrate to Canada, you would need to pay for private health insurance, or to the States, or, you're coming in here and you're basically putting a down payment on, back into the system so that you are covered from day one. And yes, you do still have to pay national insurance, because national insurance is not just for the NHS, that's your pension and other benefits and.
Thank you.
Yes, Christian, if your wife gets a work visa, you and the children can go to the UK with dependent visas, and yes, you will be able to work. There are some criteria you have to meet, like you have to have a certain amount of money in your account per dependent. It's not a lot of money. It's nothing like £88,500. It's a couple of hundred per dependent. It's just so that they know when you land this side, you've got a little bit of money to pay some rent and buy some food.
It's so complicated, isn't it? Honestly, it's just incredible. I'm running out of ink on my pen on notes I'm writing down. Scaring me, as in, like, because the NHS surcharge is £1,100 per year or something.
Yeah, it's £1,035 per adult per year and £776 per child per year. So it racks up pretty quickly, and especially, particularly, and I speak from experience being South African, when you're looking at an exchange rate of about 23 to 1,
yeah,
it's a lot of money. It really is a lot of money.
That's incredible. Yeah. That's great. Any more questions from anybody at all? Or there's some really good questions being asked tonight. It's so detailed.
Anyone who perhaps has a question that they don't want to ask openly on here, I mean, you're obviously welcome to email me. I'll pop my email address in the messages here. I know that sometimes you've got questions that you may not want to ask on a forum like this, which is fair enough.
True. I'm sure people do know this as well, but if people want to save the chat, you can just click on the 3 dots here and save the chat. But your details are there anyway as well, so that's fine. But anything else to add, Andrew, at all? Or it's been really good, actually. Really,
yeah, it's been brilliant. I mean, we tend to send, obviously the purpose of the recording is we know people can't always make this specific time, so we tend to send this out for people to look, but also all our details on as well. So any specific questions for Mark, myself, Shani, like I said, we like to think we're an open book and provide the best advice we can. Sometimes we might not know the answer, but we'll normally know people who do. So then it's just passing you over to whoever we've got who can help out, basically.
Another question's popped up here. My wife and I both have British passports, so we're applying for British passports for our children. We're heading to the UK next year. Will they have to pay the surcharge? No, they won't. If they're British citizens with British passports, they won't have to. Whatever your situation was, I'm assuming you know that your children are eligible for British passports and don't have to come on visas. If you're referring to child dependent visas and both parents are British, or if you're a single British parent, you don't pay the surcharge. So either way, your children wouldn't have to pay the surcharge.
Brilliant. We've had a conversation before, Shani, I know, where you said to me, if you're a British citizen, if you fall off the plane and break your leg, you're covered. Not that you want to do that, but it's nice to be covered. So.
Well, yeah, it's kind of important,
Yeah, exactly. No.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask the question. I had a hip operation, so would that qualify me as an adoptee into British Empire ownership? But quite honestly, thank you very much. It was very warming to hear the specialist talking tonight, and I'm showing my picture on purpose. We do have very much inclinations about moving across, and Shani, we will be in touch shortly, as we spoken before, not on LinkedIn, but certainly on Facebook. And like to thank you all for your input. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barry.
Very
Thank you, Barry.
Any more questions before we go? We try and keep it to around about 45 minutes in case because people have other lives as well. It's, various times around the world for everybody here, but we try and say 30 minutes, 15 minutes Q&A. We go as long as we'll go to an hour if people want us to, but we try and sort of wrap up when people we think have had enough. So if there's no more questions, we will either bid you good night, but if anybody has any more questions, to put it in the chat at the moment. Otherwise, feel free to reach out to all of us over the next few days. Happy to try and give you some free advice as much as possible. If you need more detailed one-to-one Zoom calls or team calls, then happy to do that as well. But appreciate everybody's time tonight.
Yeah, really good.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Shani. Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Mark. And,
Thanks very much.
enjoy the rest
Thank
of your
you,
week.
guys.
Thank you,
Cheers.
Barry.
Bye now.
Bye. Ciao.